Right now, everyone's trying to get free. Everyone feels weighed down by something. The pressure of money, the pressure of family, obligations. It's like we're all trying to break free of this thing that is like boxing us in, but we have such a hard time doing that because we don't really know what's holding us back. We don't really know how to define the prison that is holding us hostage. We talk about it as the Babylon system. Some people do. Some people talk about it as being the Matrix. Some people say it's capitalism or colonialism. And all of these words are similar but different, but we use them to describe the same thing, which is like this overarching system of beliefs that imprison us and force us to live our lives in a certain way. And so, you can't break free all at once from anything. You can't break an addiction in one day. A lot of times you got to wean yourself off, or you got to break it up into little pieces and just, be satisfied with the small victories of overcoming one addiction at a time. Now, you can't break free from these systems all at once, but you can do it bit by bit. But in order to do it, you have to know what you're fighting against. You have to know all the different ways that the powers that be, the Matrix, the system, Babylon, whatever word you want to use, the devil, whatever word you want to use, you have to understand how they trap you, because they're not trapping you just off of one thing. Even someone who smokes cigarettes, they might be addicted to cigarettes, but it is anxiety or depression or fear that led them to seek something to numb their pain. And they chose cigarettes, for example, right? But you can see that there's a cause and effect, and it's never just one cause. There's always a multitude of factors that push us in any direction that we go in. And so when we talk about getting free from the Matrix, getting free from Babylon, we have to break this up. And the Babylon system is made up of pieces. And the main pieces, or at least the ones that hold us in the most, are number one, the family system, number two, the religious system, number three, education, number four, the media and the arts in general, number five is entertainment, number six is business and the economy, money, and the seventh is the government system. Now, this is my favorite topic, breaking free from the Matrix, so this is probably going to be a multiple part episode or multiple part video. But I just want to start by saying, unless you're willing to change your thinking as far as family, how you make money, your religion, your education, where you get your news from, unless you're willing to change all of these things, what's going to happen is that any one of these things can pull you back into obligation, into doubt, into fear, into worry, right? I mean, we all love our families, right? So many of us, we work jobs we hate for our family. So many people have resentment towards their mother and father, which is kind of a new thing. Well, resentment isn't new, but the type of resentment that we have in the modern era where people actually, don't talk to their parents for years and years at a time, that's weird. It's weird in the spiritual sense, but it makes sense. Like everyone else is doing it, so it makes sense. But so we don't think about how strange it is that the people who create us, we ostracize ourselves from, right? Or, like you see this in different cultures, not in the West so much, but you see in other cultures the idea of the nuclear family. Grandparents with the children, and then the children have children, and then the grandparents are raising the grandchildren, and they all live in the house together under one roof. Everybody's saving money. This circulation of wealth, but also of knowledge and wisdom. We don't have that in the West. We have this sort of young versus old dynamic. We have this feeling, or it is taught to us that we should leave the house as early as possible, which is not necessarily a bad thing as far as your growth and your maturity. But the issue is that once you leave, you never look back, right? And it affects how people live their lives moving forward, because even though when you're 20, it might be in your best interest to, leave the nest and see the world, your parents, your elders, better yet, they still carry wisdom and life experience that can benefit you when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, right? And so if you have the ability to talk to your parents, to meet with them, and you choose not to, you are doing yourself a disservice, right? Because most of us, at a certain point, you've reached an age where you're older than your parents were when they had you. And with all the foolishness, you should know at that stage of your life that they're just doing their best, right? And so a bit of grace can go a long way. But again, like I said, this is a multi-part video, so I'm just going to touch on each topic. So the other system that we need to look at is the religious system. Many of us, we inherit our religion. We don't actually choose to be Christians. Like, we are baptized into our faith as children because our parents chose that for us. Now, like I said before, with the family, there's nothing wrong with, you're not always going to see eye to eye with your family, right? But the issue is that, you need to be the one to make some of these decisions yourself, right? You need to be the one who decides if you want to be a Christian, if you want to be a Muslim, if you want to be a Jew, if you want to be if you want to follow the path of spirituality. Now, every religion, every major religion, is taking spiritual principles and they are applying them through essentially a political lens, because religion has a power structure, right? Like, look at the Catholic Church. There's money, there's power, there's political influence. The same is true with Islam. There's many countries that where the Quran is essentially the chief document of the land. The government follows Sharia law, not just the individuals, but the government, right? You look at a country like Israel, Judaism and Kabbalic principles are ingrained in the government, right? And so having a sort of a, just going along with these systems, right? Going along with the religion that you were born into just because that was the case is not any different than going along with being a Democrat because your mom and dad were Democrats. At a certain point, you have the ability to discern and to recommit yourself in any direction you want. And you need to, if you want to be free from the system, being free from the Babylon system, being free from the matrix, being free of the zeitgeist, right? Because so many of us, we're actually not aware of what the system is and or is not telling us to do, but we understand certain rights and certain wrongs based on our peers. Like, we know based on how our neighbor is behaving what we can and cannot do, or what we should and should not expect. But we don't actually have the wherewithal to we never really thought about it. Right? And so religion is, being free from the Babylon system from a religious perspective is, once you are able to separate religion from spirituality, right? Because we know that there is only one God. We know that there is only one consciousness, but we have hundreds of different religions, right? And so where is the disconnect, right? Some of these religions the differences is, and you see this especially with Christianity. Some of these different sects of Christianity, the only reason why there are differences is because someone with power didn't want to follow certain rules that were set out by God. And they use their power, their money, their influence to say, you know what, I'm going to make a whole other religion, which is the same as the previous, but now I can have sex with my wife and my girlfriend. Now I can have a divorce. Now I can buy property. Now I can charge interest, right? Little things like that. And you don't realize that your religion that you were born into only exists because the King of England 700 years ago wanted to sell a goat to a divorced woman. It's like look into how different religions have come into play. Learn the difference between being a Catholic and being a Jehovah's Witness, right? Don't just say, "Oh, I was born this way and I'll die this way." Why? Why does one suit you rather than the other, right? And so when you start to explore the differences between spirituality and religion, and you reintegrate the idea that there is one God, right? You become the master of your universe, right? And you stop outsourcing power to your pastor, to your rabbi, to your imam, right? You even stop outsourcing power to God, because you realize that you are God and God acts through you in everything that you do. So you are a reflection of God, meaning there's nothing to look outwardly to, right? But again, these are all complicated topics that need their own video. This is just an intro. And this, again, is my favorite topic. I'm learning with you. I'm learning and growing just by being here. So thank you for making it this far. This means a lot to me. It allows me to grow and to step into my fullness, step into being the person I was always meant to be, right? And so the next way that the Babylon system entraps the people is through education, right? And so there's a difference between education and knowledge. We all know this. You can sit through 10 years, 15 years worth of school and learn nothing. You can go to the library and after 15 minutes, after an hour, you've absorbed information and knowledge and wisdom that you otherwise wouldn't, right? And so, again, this comes back to empowering the self, right? What the Babylon system wants to do is they want to take your power away, and they want to say, we can do it for you, right? They want to say, we can teach you better than you can teach yourself. Is that true? For those of us old enough who have gone through the education system, gone through high school, gone through university, could you have taught yourself those things? Could you have read those books on your own? Did you need the teacher, right? Even something as simple as this. If you are a parent, could you teach your child how to read? Do you read at a strong enough level where you could teach a child how to read, right? If you've made it this far in the video, the answer is yes. You could teach a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old how to read. You know what every letter of the alphabet sounds like, but how many parents do that? How many parents in today's day and age teach their children how to read, right? Because the most important thing that the Babylon system does is they take your power away and they claim it for themselves, right? Even just the thought, right? Teaching a child how to read, I could never. Come on now. Some of these teachers, they don't even know as much as you do, right? Like some of these teachers, if you really look at their education, you are more qualified to teach your child about everything than they are to teach them about anything. But the sense of confidence that you have in yourself is what's lacking, right? Because now what ends up happening is you send your child to school, right? They are surrounded by strangers, right? they're not so much being educated, that they're being indoctrinated, right? Because what you have in your mind, so many of us need to unlearn things. For so many of us, the issue is not what we know, it's what we it's the things that we think are true that are not true, that are getting in the way of us being able to access or being empowered, being confident, being bold enough to really live our lives on the front foot, right? We step out into the world at 18, step out into the world at 22, with all of these ideas that do not apply to the lives that we want to live, to the happiness, to the goals that we truly have as individuals. And then we have to go through 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Some people never get there, of self-discovery, of unlearning, of traveling the world, of makeups, breakups, failed relationships, failed career, wasted money, just to get back to ourselves at our core, get back to who we are as people. So much of this comes from being miseducated as children, being told as children that money is the most important thing, that validation from strangers in the form of your report card. I can't even remember the names of my teachers. I can remember maybe of all these teachers I had, I can maybe remember 3, right? So there's a good 15 more, 20 more that just completely disappeared from my mind. But what they taught me, a lot of it is still there. Subconsciously, it's still there. Okay, it's March 15th, gotta do my taxes. Okay. Oh, it's September 1st. Okay, summer's over. Gotta start getting, gotta take it seriously. Oh no, I gotta be up at this time. I gotta run around and do this and do that. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on of things that we were taught that we didn't even realize are there, right? And so you need to recognize that when you sit with yourself, what you were put on this earth to do. You know what you want from your life. You know what you need in order to accomplish the things that you want from your life. Anyone outside of you does not know this, right? They don't. So knowledge versus education, right? There's nothing wrong with taking a course. There's nothing wrong with going to school. I went to school. I went to university. I had a great time. I met great friends. I'm happy I went. But to be honest, the most impactful learning that happened in my life happened outside of the classroom, right? And I know that you can say the same for yourself. So why do we even bother with school? Why do we even bother with school? Because society tells us we have to go. And we know based on what and we decide based on what our friends do, what we can and cannot do, right? Why not homeschool your children, right? For most parents, the honest reason why is because school is daycare, which is what school was always designed for, right? And again, knowledge versus education. You can learn these things yourself. The books are there. They're at the library. You can read them online, right? The modern day education system was designed as a place for workers to leave their children while they were at work, right? Because during World War II, when the men were at war, I guess this started before that. I guess it was World War I. But when all the men were fighting at war and all the women were brought into the labor force, now there was a void. Now there was no one to take care of the children. Garbage truck. But yes, your job stepped in to be the parent that you couldn't be, right? And that's still happening today, where parents, they send their kids to school because there's no other place for them to go, right? And so again, there's a web of things that are all overlapping, right? Because not only is the school playing the mother role, but now you have a lot of women playing the father role, and now you have a lot of men playing the child role. That's a whole other conversation for another day. But again, education, even if you go to work and you need a place for your children, right? Do you have enough clarity of mind to recognize that a babysitter and a teacher are two different things, right? Maybe your kids are being cared for during the day, but they're being educated by you in the evening. Oh, you don't have the energy. You know what I'm saying? Again, this is about your power, your energy being taken from you, right? Because caring for your children, that's why you go to work, right? That's why you save money. That's why you send them to school, because you want them to learn. So if I remind you that they're not learning anything at school, right? Shouldn't that motivate you to take a different path, right? But in order to break free from the system, you need your energy, right? You need to be sleeping, you need to be eating right, you need to be exercising, right? These things tie back into family, right? Because you eat with your family, right? These things tie back to the education system, because you were taught that you go to work and you do this and you do that, right? This is about religion as well, because eventually you're gonna die and you're gonna go to heaven, or you're gonna go to hell, and then eventually all these questions that you didn't have the time to answer for yourself will be answered for you by God, by somebody else. And so the common thread of all of these things is to empower you to be the number one source of energy. The number one solution to all of your problems is you. You are the problem and you are the solution. Isn't that liberating? Right? Because if you were the problem but not the solution, and now you got to go look for this, oh man. Right? Now, also, if you were the solution but not the problem, now you got all these people to blame for your problems. Right? Thank God you are both the problem and the solution. But moving forward now, so the next way that the system entraps you is through the media, right? And so the media, this isn't new. Edward Bernays' Propaganda, great book to read on this topic. You know, we don't know what we don't know, right? We turn on the TV, we pick up our phones, we go to a website, we engage with the news, right? With information about the world around us, right? This information has been filtered. Key things have been omitted. And because of that, we are not getting the most accurate representation of what's going on in the world, right? But we know this. And so much of it is about trust, right? It's like we are forced to trust Reuters. We're forced to trust MSNBC because we can't be there, but we trust that they are there, they're doing a good job, they're telling the truth, and that we can take what they say at face value and run with it. We know that we can't do it. But we do it anyway, because the alternative requires so much more energy, right? And again, the Babylon system, what they want to do is take your power from you and claim it for themselves. We can do it better than you can for yourself, right? We can figure out what's going on. You can't. We have more power, we're smarter, we're stronger, so it's in your best interest to just put your faith in us and sit back and relax, right? That's the lie that the system tells you, and it applies into all of these different categories that I'm naming, right? But one of the things that the media does, and one of the many things that the media does, is they shape your idea of what normal is, right? They shape your idea of what is and what is not allowed, what is and what is not possible. And because of that, subconsciously, just from watching the news, you begin to believe, okay, these people are violent. Okay, these people are friendly. Okay, this corporation is out for blood. This corporation is here to help me, right? It is because of the media that people believe that the left and the right are two different entities that are, like anyone who's done their research knows that they are attached to the hip, that there is one government, period. There's one government, and you either work for the government or you don't, period. You have the political class, and then you have the rest of us. There's no good politician versus the bad politicians. This is the media that has shaped you into believing this, right? The media is where the idea of right and wrong comes from, right? The media is the idea of, we're all the same. That's the media that says this to you, right? And so the willingness that you have, right? Sorry about that. And so the media, as we all know this to be true, and this is true with public media and with private media, right? The media is a corporation that exists to serve its own interests, right? And so it is in the media's best interest for you to believe what they're telling you to believe, right? They have donors that they receive money to, and they also invest money into different organizations, right? Politicians are in bed with certain media corporations. We know this to be true on both sides of the aisle. And it will shape the information that they give to you, right? And so a lot of this is about just understanding the game that's being played against you, right? Because just because you understand that CNN is in bed with Chuck Schumer doesn't mean that you can't turn on CNN for, to see if it's going to rain or to know what's going on, like there was a hurricane, so let me turn on CNN to see what's going on. The media being aligned with different ideologies and working as a corporation doesn't automatically mean that they are untrustworthy. What it means is that they have a bias, and they're not speaking to you impartially. They are not speaking to you from a place of neutrality. So you just need to know what that means, right? It's like someone who comes to my door selling, refrigerators. He can give me good advice on my taxes too, maybe. But the whole purpose, you have to understand just what the purpose is, right? And there's a lot of different places to get your information. And most importantly, again, like I said, it's about you and your power. You have to trust your eyes and ears first. What you see, what you hear, what you in your heart know to be true based on what you've experienced, that comes first. And then what CNN says comes second, maybe third, whatever. But you have to come first, right? George Orwell talks about this. They talk about this in the book 1984, where the powers that be, their most important goal, their most important accomplishment in terms of gaining control of the people is to make you question what you are seeing, right? We saw this a lot with the pandemic. People in denial about what those shots were doing to people, people taking them and knowing full well, oh my God, like people knowing that people feeling in their own body that something questionable was taking place, but ignoring it nonetheless because the news told them that they should, right? The news told them that everything is fine. The news told them that their injuries weren't what they thought they were, right? The media, very dangerous. Okay, so the next one is Hollywood and the arts and entertainment. Now, what makes this different from the media is when it comes to, let's just call it information, right? The entertainment industry is not trying to inform you. What it's trying to do is entertain you. It really is a distraction, right? So the media is the news, whereas arts and entertainment is the movies, it's sports, it is the Oscars, right? And what this does is it creates this sort of this ideological world of what could be. If you work hard enough and if you play your cards right, maybe you will sit side by side with Timothée Chalamet. Oh my God. Could you imagine my good fortune? Right? And so the art and the art world, we use this as counterculture, right? There's a reason why even the Bible is written in a very philosophical, artistic, prophetic, allegorical way, because art has a way, because it's not literal, it actually is able to resonate with more people on a deeper level. Because what it does is it allows people to inject their own meaning into the art that they are engaging in, right? The media, the news, they have to be literal. It has to speak in a very matter-of-fact way, which prevents how deep it can resonate with certain people, right? Arts and entertainment is a much more free-flowing medium, and it's able to get you on a more subconscious level. It's also able to engage with you in ways that you don't really understand, because it's symbolism, or it's abstract. And so, for example, there was this there's a video by Justin Bieber. It's I think it's like, where are you now when I need you? Boop, 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 boop. Something like that. But it's like, it's a video that is like, in the music video, there's a lot of like animations, and there are and this is on YouTube. There's a lot of people who have taken that video and they've slowed it down to show like what these different animations are showing. And some of the images that are being shown to you in this Justin Bieber music video are actually, you know, if you know, you know, right? If you understand, you know, the secret clubs that some of these people are a part of, then some of the imagery that is shown in this video will make sense to you. But for so many people, it just goes right over their head. And they don't realize that they spent the last 3 minutes watching a video that was promoting something dark and sinister, right? There's an episode in The Simpsons, the cartoon, where it was like the Navy was trying to draft people to join, and they put out this like musical artists, Ivan Etniash, and that was the hook of the song. And then when they would play the song backwards, it was like, join the Navy, right? This is a real thing that happens in arts and entertainment, where they inject these subversive ideas that people don't realize are there, right? And so, again, a lot of this is about awareness, and this is about, again, you taking your power back, right? A lot of the things that entertainment does for the people, giving them a distraction, giving them even a sense of community. You know, right now the World Cup is happening. It's great to see these different people coming together, to be honest. Like, it's great. Like, I didn't know there were so many Mexicans in my neighborhood. Fuck, like they must have been hiding until like 3 weeks ago, right? But, you know, the distraction from the system, you know what I mean? It's like it's like we're all weighed down so much by this stuff that we welcome anything that can just take our minds off of it, even just for an hour. And it's like recognizing that's the reason why we even watch a football game, right? Is because we hate our lives. You know what I mean? It sounds extreme, but it's true, right? I mean, the distraction, why do we even turn on the TV, right? Most people, they come home after a long day of work, they're too tired to do anything but watch TV. You have to look at that. That's what it's for. It's meant to pacify you. It's meant to, the last bit of power that you have, the last bit of energy that you have at the end of the day, let's take that from you too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the weekend. Finally, you have a day free to just be with your family, to recharge your battery. Okay, let's go to the football game, right? Let's spend all this money to distract ourselves. Let's go to work. Let's do work that we don't want to do, and then once a month we get to go to a basketball game. And it's this cycle, this rinse and repeat cycle, right? So the next one is the economy, right? How does money work? How does business work? And how those keep us trapped, right? And so capitalism, money, right? Do I need to explain how the pursuit of money keeps you trapped or keeps you on the hamster wheel? Probably not, right? Especially if you made it this far in the video, right? Something must resonate with you, right? Money, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of career, the pursuit, and this ties to external validation, right? Because what do we do with our money, right? I don't know what's worse, pissing your life away just so you can buy a fancy car, or pissing your life away at a job you hate just to look at the money on the screen, right? Like, I know people who make 6 figures a year, never spend $1, and live like the most miserable lives you can imagine. Why is that? Like, what's worse? At least do something with your money, right? At least do something with your money, right? Because it's about values. It's about you spending money on what you think is important, right? It's about the more you give, the more you receive. It's not the more you save, the more it doesn't work like that, because inflation and taxes, you need to use your money. You need to use your energy. You need to invest in the things that you care about in order for them to multiply, right? It's to be fruitful and multiply was what God told us to do, right? But so many people, we live in fear of going broke, of running out of money, of running out of food, of being homeless. But really what the fear is being uncomfortable. Because when you live in the West, money is easy to come by. And I know that people don't like to hear that, but it's true. In the West, money is easy to come by. And that's why we are materialistic, because it's not hard to make $100 in a day. Like, that's like you don't have to think or be very smart to do that, right? And God forbid you apply yourself, $500 in a day is not, $5,000 in a week, $10,000 a month. Like these sums of money are very much within reach for everybody. Everybody can make that kind of money, right? How you do it is what makes all the difference in the world, right? And so there's nothing wrong with working a job. Of course, there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had jobs at every level of the pyramid by this time of my life, right? The issue isn't necessarily what you do for your money. It's more about you having your own definition of what money is, you having your own definition of what wealth is, you being financially literate, you being able to generate your own wealth. Having an entrepreneurial mindset is, at this time of life, the most important thing you can possibly do, because it allows you to have the power. It allows you to have the power and not outsource your power to a corporation they don't even know who you are. Your boss doesn't know who you are. Your manager doesn't know who you are. They know what they need so that they can do their job well to their superiors, but they don't know you, right? And so sovereignty, are you able to make money by yourself? Do you know how to, exchanging goods of services for equal value? Because that's what money is. Money is a store of value, right? That's why, a $100 plate of food and a $10 plate of food, they still fill your stomach the same way, and you still poop it out the same way, right? But it's about the value, right? And this is a word that they don't teach you in school, value. They don't teach you this. They teach you money. They teach you, they don't even teach you about taxes in school, right? They don't teach you about self-worth. What does it mean for you to have this money, right? This is about you knowing yourself. And again, where is the power? Because if you're doing something that you genuinely love to do, that genuinely feeds your soul, feeds your community, and by feeds I mean spiritually, it grows people, then the dollar amount will become irrelevant. In the West, money is easy to come by, and honestly, so is housing. The problem is that we all want to live like downtown Manhattan on top of the Studio 54. That's not realistic, right? But like the Western nations are very big. There's a lot of space. You don't have to live where you live. You can live somewhere else. You can live in a place 50 miles down the road that gives you a better quality of life. And many of us should. For many of us, a lot of our unhappiness is because of where we are and who we have to surround ourselves with. It is out of alignment with your higher self, and you go along with it because you were told that is what you are supposed to do, right? And so, like I said, like with our previous one, entertainment, right? Entertainment isn't just watching TV. Entertainment is also going to the bar and getting drunk. That's a form of entertainment, right? And for so many of us, entertainment, a better word is distraction, right? We need to be distracted from our lives because we hate our lives. So we need a distraction. We need to drink. We need to watch TV. We need to do drugs, right? And it doesn't matter what your drug of choice is. Alcohol, weed, cigarettes, antidepressants, right? These are drugs. They're drugs. Because what they do is all of these things are meant to pull your mind away from the present and give you something else to think about. That's not reality, right? Because it's reality that's bothering you, right? And God forbid you change your reality. God forbid you claim your power, right? That's what this video is about. You claiming your power, you taking your power back. You should not need, your life should be something that you want unfiltered. Give me more of my life, not of someone else's life, someone else's goals, right? Booze, someone else's inclinations, right? But yours, your power, your life, your soul, your mind, right? And so the last point I'll touch on is the government, right? So of the 7 pillars of the Babylon system, this last one is the government, right? And so the government is a corporation. They're not just, it's like cities are incorporated. Countries are incorporated. When one country takes over another country, there's a handing over there's paperwork. It's not too different from one company buying another company, right? The country that you live in wasn't always the country that you live in. Does that make sense? Like if you live in Canada, you live in America, you live in Mexico. That's the name of that corporation today. Today that corporation is headquartered where it is. It operates under this name with these people in charge. But countries are not permanent, the same way that corporations are not permanent. They last as long as the paperwork allows them to, right? And so many of us, we build these entire identities on really a corporation, right? Like I like IKEA, but I'm not Swedish. That doesn't make me Swedish. I'm not IKEAN just because I like IKEA. I guess maybe it does, right? Maybe I am a part of the IKEA cult, right? Team IKEA, right? But doesn't that sound crazy? Like I pledge allegiance to IKEA, right? I pledge allegiance to Walmart. I pledge allegiance to Amazon. Doesn't that sound crazy? But that's what people do with their nation. That's what they do. That's what they do, without realizing that all of these things are flexible, right? It's paperwork, right? Moving from one country to another is paperwork, right? Getting a passport is paperwork, which I recommend everyone does. If you don't have a passport, you're missing out on life, right? But all of these things, there's a spectrum of government, right? There's a spectrum. And once you're on the spectrum, now you're engaged with the political system. There's no part of the political spectrum where you are not where your energy is not being usurped from you in some way, shape, or form, right? And this is what a lot of people get confused, is like the difference between the ideology of the government system, the ideology of the party that they support, versus the ideology in practice, right? Now, every time you go and vote, you are practicing your politics, right? Every time you check a box, every time you identify as a member of a particular political organization, you are practicing your politics. You cannot practice politics in a vacuum, right? Because so much of that implies group organization, other people. You can't be a Democrat by yourself. You need to be a Democrat with other Democrats, right? That's the whole purpose of it, right? And then together you all put your power together, and then you form like Voltron, and then I'll keep that joke to myself, right? What Democrats do when they all get together. But you cannot practice politics in a vacuum. But you can believe, you can have certain beliefs without it needing to infringe or be based on other people, right? If your politics do not overlap with other ideologies, you're actually just following the crowd. Because if you're thinking, if you're being reasonable, if you're applying logic, if you're thinking for yourself, it is inevitable that some of your beliefs will align with this party, some other beliefs will align with this other party, and then you'll form this collage of ideas. And that's what it means to be an individual, is you have your own individual way of thinking, right? It is people some of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet are people who are 100% anything. Even if it's something noble, I'm 100% generous. Really? You need to reason. You need to have enough wherewithal, to have enough power, to have enough confidence within yourself to say no to certain things, even if those things will make you unpopular, right? This is how you get your power back, because a lot of people, they trade their individual power for this collective power. They say, this collective doesn't agree with what I believe, but I'll keep my mouth shut as a way to stay involved with the larger collective, which will empower me. It doesn't empower you, at least not from the inside out, right? What ends up happening is you have a team of people who are lukewarm, which is the worst thing you can be in this world, is lukewarm, right? Why are you even there if you only kind of care? Why are you even there? You're only halfway, like who are you there for? Right? Not for yourself. You're there because I'm here so I don't get fined. You know what I'm saying? But the democratic system, right, is meant for, the 50 woo, right? And so the government has a way of controlling all of these different pillars of Babylon, all these different systems. The government controls all of these. The government controls the education system. They control the economy. They control, even like the family court system, marriages, But if you think about it, you don't need the government for anything. If you are able and willing to fill that void and do the work, you don't need them for anything, right? Every time the government says we can do it for you, you need, like, that's a red flag, and that you need to wake up to, right? You can form your own communities to such a degree where it doesn't matter who the mayor is, it doesn't matter who the prime minister is. Listen, like, I live in a neighborhood that is like there's a lot of Hasidic Jews in my neighborhood. They have their own education system. They send their kids to their own schools. These people, they don't even vote because they don't need to. They don't vote because they don't need to. They have their own society within a larger society. The same is true with Native people. They have Native reserves. I know that there's a whole complicated history to that, right? But when you start local and you build from the ground up, the stronger your community becomes, the less influence outside, the less influence from the outside will affect you. And you can do it all within yourself if you recognize that the power is there. You know, there's a difference between the legal system and justice. You know, justice, people don't always get the justice that they deserve, right? And so that should show you that there's room for improvement, and that you don't need to necessarily be involved with something if it's not working for you, right? A lot of people don't like the system. It's not working for them, but they pain themselves into believing that there is no other way, right? There is no other way. It's this way or I die. It's either I go along with some bullshit or the system will kill me, or I'll just die trying. And, you know, so much of it is like, do people even want to try anymore? Do people even believe that they can get to the other side of their problems? Or have they just thrown in the towel? And that's a personal question. God knows I haven't given up. God knows I don't see any reason for anyone to give up. I don't think you really believe that you should, but people, you know, what happens is people get tired. People get tired. And they know I got one more in me, but boy, am I tired. Right? And that inner well of energy, that inner resolve, again, like I said, what the system wants to do is take your power away. And because we are inspired by so many different things, and what motivates you to give it that extra little bit, that extra push, is not the same that motivates me. And it's not even about money or family or power or approval. It's deeper. It's much more individual, because we all need money, right? Or rather yet, we all have things that we value, right? It's about tapping into your purpose, your calling, and staying true to it long enough to see the fruits of your labor, right? But like I said, this is a multi-part video. There'll be more of this. This is my favorite topic, the matrix and how to get out of it. And if I could just leave you with one final message, you got this.